Well, good evening. We're watching 6 News right here on our YouTube channel. It's just gone 7:25 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, approaching 7 p.m. over in South Australia, and it's about 5:30 in Western Australia. Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews and Victorian Opposition Leader Matthew Guy have just been wrapping up a debate which is held on Sky News. It is the only debate of this campaign, despite, from what we understand, requests from the ABC, 9 and 7 to all hold their individual debates. What this means is, apart from those select viewers on Sky News Regional, there is no debate on free-to-air television. Now, that's caused a lot of upset from some, but look, the debate itself was really interesting. We're going to kind of unpack that for you. Let us know your questions. Let us know, were you even watching? And then we'll get you the latest on the Victorian election as well, because we are hearing a lot. We've got now a supplementary election in one seat, which is a extraordinarily rare circumstance, at least in Australia. So, you know, just make this election even more interesting. But it's really looking like it's going to be a properly tight campaign. So we're going to keep you posted on all that. But right now, we just want to make sure we kind of wrap up what we're hearing in terms of this debate. Because as I said, it was held on Sky News. They were facing a panel of 100 undecided voters. And look, it was interesting because a lot of people, and some of the comments I'm seeing, was that Dan Andrews won. People didn't want Dan Andrews to win, or at least Dan Andrews was doing a lot better than how Matthew Guy was going. Got some questions right now in the chat. Benedict Puglisi asks who was moderating it. It was Kieran Gilbert, who is the Sky chief news anchor. Ozgeist says, I didn't watch the debate. Fair enough, your choice. But look, it was an interesting one because, as I said, it's the only one of this campaign. We are not actually seeing any other debates this election, and they were facing, it was one of those people's forums, so it wasn't just questions from journalists. They were facing 100 undecided voters. I believe it was held in the seat of Box Hill Marginal. That is one seat. Probably actually seeing some of that stock footage right now. But it's it's a seat that really could be one of the few that the Liberals actually win. And if they pick it up, that helps them. Obviously, they need to pick up a lot, but that could seriously help them. The Premier was asked about regional areas, what he's doing for regional areas, because, so much of this campaign can be focused on metropolitan Melbourne. He did mention he was in Wangaratta yesterday, where he grew up. Obviously, we've had, a lot of flooding recently, which has put the regions into the, not just statewide, but really national spotlight. There's that Box Hill footage. Nicole Warner is the Liberal candidate there. Guy was asked about his integrity. He mentioned that, his government was the one that set up IBAC, or he was part of it. Obviously, IBAC being a huge issue right now, given both major parties are kind of at the centre of this debate. But the Premier, he was in his usual kind of confident style. I think he was there. Matthew Guy had, experience debating him before they actually did it back in 2018. Same kind of forum too, Sky People's Forum. But yeah, it was, about 1 hour. Certainly, I think some would say that there should have been a few more, or at least maybe one on free-to-air television, maybe the ABC. But again, our understanding is, 9 and the ABC, 9 and 7, I should say, also reached out here. In terms of the seats that can be won, though, and you're seeing a lot of footage right now, but that can actually be won by the Liberals, as we've said, Box Hill is a possible one, Nepean is another, Melton seems to be a really tight race, but there's a chance there. We also have some of the newer electorates that have popped up. Liberals could win back Hawthorn, although that's looking like, forget the Labor incumbent, it would be a teal Liberal contest. But at the same time, again, Liberals are trying to hold on in a lot of seats. For example, Kew, that's a seat where I think there's a lot of speculation about whether they'll hold on. That is the seat of Tim Smith, the outgoing Liberal member, obviously, facing controversy after that drink-driving car crash last year. There's footage of Kew again. It's coming up nice and timely, isn't it? It's all automated, by the way. Jess Wilson is the Liberal candidate there. We have Jackie Carter Greens, and So Victorian is the teal there. Labor, interestingly, seems to be putting in a bit more of a fight this time instead of running dead, as some would argue they did at the federal election in the seat of Kooyong. Now, Kew is part of Kooyong. There's more footage there. Melissa Lowe, independent for Hawthorn, again part of that federal Kooyong electorate. T-Boy, the logo and animation guy, says, I think 9-3AW The Age wanted a joint debate with Alicia Loxley, someone from The Age and someone from the AW, making comments with the former moderating. Yeah, that was my understanding too. I'm not sure what would happen with 7. I would have presumed something like Nick McCallum is still there, isn't he? Maybe Mike Amor as well, actually, possibly Peter Mitchell. And the ABC, you would have imagined Richard Willingham, potentially Patricia Garvelis, maybe Bridget Rollison as well. Could have brought someone down from Canberra if they wanted, like an Andrew Probyn type or a Jane Norman. 6 News should have asked for a debate, T-Boy also says. Oh, look, well, we're trying to even get the leaders on. We've managed to get the Greens leader on, the UAP leader on. We're still waiting in regards to Dan Andrews and Guy. Guys, unlikely Andrews we are still holding out hope for, but if his team wants to get back to us, that would be fantastic. But it would be really great to have him on. The other issues that were kind of raised there, also were focused on, actually I mentioned it before, integrity, and of course health being a huge issue right now with COVID. We actually have one candidate out with possibly COVID, that being Dr. Kate Lardner, who is running in Mornington, that's it. She's running in Mornington, and yeah, she might have COVID, so that puts her out of the action. So look, it's still affecting people, obviously. In terms of whether it'll be this huge big election issue, that is, kind of another matter here. But the health system in general has been a huge problem. Matthew Guy was basically saying that, Labor, or he says Labor has broken the health system in Victoria, and he also has, claimed that the Premier is dividing Victorians. That's Matthew Guy's words there. So, yeah, look, I think it was really interesting. Again, many people seem to be saying, and that includes people who are not Dan Andrews fans, by the way, that Andrews was performing a bit stronger than Guy. Again, what are your thoughts? We're going to put a poll up in the live chat right now, because we'd really love to know your view on this. The other issues that were also discussed, and again there were many, but there was the public transport policies, and look, transport, roads, things like that in general have been a huge topic with the suburban rail loop. The Liberals wanting to, scrap it. Labor wanting to continue it. The Liberals also have that. There's a tram there. There's stock footage lining up greatly. What was I going to say? Yeah, the public transport, the flat fare, I think $2, and, it was asked whether it was economically viable. Guy said yes, he can't promise, everything, can't promise everything in the world, but, he's standing by that in terms of it being economically viable. And then you had the Premier who was continuing to, I guess, talk up the suburban rail loop. He's really standing by that, and fair. It's huge policy right now, and it's one that's taking a while. But it's a huge policy, so that's what's going to happen. So yeah, keep reading, keep giving us your thoughts right now. Definitely some, though, I think that do believe Guy won. And again, as I should mention, he does have experience with those things. I mean, both of them do, but they faced off in what? They faced off in 2018. They faced off now. They faced off repeatedly, actually, in 2018. So that is that. So yeah, look. The other thing that I think is also being discussed right now, because we had that polling out last night, overnight. We want to get to that in just a moment. I'm not 100% sure of whether that was actually brought up at this debate. But it's really interesting, because what it's saying is ALP coalition neck and neck 36% each primary vote. Greens 10, Independent 6, other is 12. Now, Labor still has that two-party preferred lead. Now, that is critical, given, a lot of seats are going to be just a Labor coalition contest. 53-47 of those two-party preferred figures. That is in the ALP's favour. But of course, the question is, Greens could win up to 6 seats. Independents could win potentially 3 at least, not including the ones that have been that are already held by independents. And then there's the other. It's increasingly unlikely we would see a non-major party or Greens or independent candidate win in the lower house. So it's key to those preferences. Now, who is that other? Are we talking the Vic Socialists, who might be preferencing, Labor above the coalition? Are we talking about like the Freedom Party, who would be putting, Labor last, you'd assume? Are we talking about One Nation, Shooters Fishers? Shooters Fishers can be a bit of a mix. What about Companions and Pets, who are running in one lower house seat? Transport Matters. There are a lot of parties running in lower house seats. I think, is the Justice Party running? I don't remember exactly. I'll check that for you. But so that is a huge, though, non-major party vote just on a primary vote. Again, that is what, do the maths here, 28%? 28% not voting for a ALP or coalition. So just 4 days out there neck and neck, but again, that two-party preferred lead is still there for Labor, 53-47. Matthew Guy, he responded to that polling today. He said a coalition government is now in reach. The question is, because they have to pick up more than 10 seats here, which is not an easy challenge. I think we should establish that here. And we're looking at seats like, they're even running in Richmond. You just saw that footage there. They're even running in Richmond, where they didn't even bother running in 2018. They're almost certainly not going to win in Richmond. The odds are it's going to be a Greens win. Greens even have the benefit of being first on the ballot paper. Labor, who hold the seat, although the incumbent Richard Wine's retiring, Labor's actually last on that ballot paper. But yeah, the Liberals might have to do a minority government. Also, I'm probably going to use Liberals as supplement for coalition here. Coalition, pretty safe Liberal national seats, and the seats that are nationals held. But it seriously looks like, the coalition's going to struggle finding all those seats that they need to pick up. So what do? You go into minority, potentially. But then you look at who a minority government could favour. And if it's only a couple of seats, well, Labor Greens could be a possibility. Of course, Labor is saying they won't do a minority government deal with the Greens. But, if it comes down to that or doing the coalition, well, you'd assume they'd go with doing it with the Greens. However, let's take into account there is some history to this interstate. Tasmania in 1996, Labor refused to do a deal with the Greens, and the Liberals ended up having to do it. Both leaders, Labor and Liberal, actually said they'd only do a majority. That ended up seeing the Liberal leader, my understanding is he resigned as a result of that, and a Liberal Greens, informal alliance was formed. So that essentially happened. Bit of a outlier there, but again, it's all possible. Also, Teal independents as well. There are only 4 official Teal independents, that being Mornington, Caulfield, Hawthorn and Kew. I reckon Kew is the one most likely to have a Teal victory. But again, Labor's actually putting in, not running dead here. Lucy Skelton is the Labor candidate there. You just saw her footage. There's Jess Wilson, the Liberal candidate, who's, running on a Yes for Jess campaign. So that's kind of the big challenge there. If they actually want to get into government, can they even pick up majority government numbers? Agent Activist says Labor do have some serious beef with the Greens, so I'm not sure. Yeah, that's kind of the thing here. But if it's Labor Greens deal or Liberals walk it in, I don't know. We don't want to have some kind of big crisis here. Like, UK in the 70s, they had 2 elections in 1 year because the minority government collapsed or something like that. Dave Cannabis, I imagine what party you're favouring. Let's see. It says neither Labor or Liberal are worthy of your vote. Vote 1. I was right. Legalise cannabis. Thank you, Dave Cannabis. But yeah, that's kind of where the situation lies here. Look, in a moment, we're going to show you an interview with one candidate who is running, Simon Gnieslaw here. He's an independent for the seat of Bentleigh. He's an independent who is, well, officially endorsed by the Fusion Party. That is Fusion Science. I'm going to try to remember the whole name. Is Fusion Science Pirates Secular Climate Emergency. So he says he's not endorsed officially, but, he is, according to the party. So we'll show that interview in just a second, but keep your comments coming in. We're going to have a poll up very shortly regarding all this, because we really do want to know your thoughts here on what is, a really interesting kind of race here, and so yeah, just keep them coming in. We'll get that that interview up for a for you in just a moment if our tech vibes allow it, because that's what happens here when you're a nice little
It's
self-controlled
such
studio. Yeah, you probably just heard it in the background there. But yeah, so let's see how this all goes. Fingers crossed you'll be able to actually hear this interview, and yeah, enjoy Simon Gnieslaw, who's running in the seat of Bentleigh, a officially Fusion endorsed independent candidate. Also discussed to him something else, which was the VEC having a bit of a challenge with him over his how to vote card. So enjoy.
it's such a thrill to be here. Like I've been watching your show for such a long time. I found a website that lets you check how long you've been subscribed to a YouTube channel, and I think it was August 2020. So it's been a while, and if
One
there's
of
one
the
thing that
originals, then.
if I mean not the very first, but if there's one of the things out of this that's good is at least being able to meet with you. I'm really impressed with the work that you do, and keep up the good work with independent journalism.
Oh, well, look, thank you so much for coming on, though. Look, we'll get straight into it. The VEC effectively initially were blocking you from using a how to vote card. It wasn't, in the traditional style. It
Yeah,
was more of a vote one, choose your own preferences kind of thing. Kind of
yeah,
similar to what we saw with the Teals, although they had blank boxes, which was the main kind of point of issue for the VEC. But my understanding is you were successful and you are able to hand out that how to vote card in the next few days.
yeah. So it is a little bit of a different case to the Teals. That they were including blank boxes for all the other candidates, and I was including a blank box for myself because I'm not even saying to vote for me. I'm saying vote for whoever you want. But I mean, of course, if you want to vote for me, that's welcome, and I listed out my policies and that. So they seem to take issue with it, thinking that it wasn't actually a how to vote card. But I took it to VCAT, and it was a successful outcome where just with a very minor change, thanks to the Teals actually, where they were allowed to include a blank box, I was able to put a blank box next to my name, and that was enough to get it over the line.
So wait, why does your own how to vote card not expressively just say vote for you? Like that's pretty unique
Because
strategy.
well, it's not necessarily a strategy; it's more of an ideology thing, where I believe that everyone should do their research, and and obviously I encourage that to be able to choose for themselves, and I don't place myself above anyone else.
Gotcha. Now, I've read over the how to vote card that I got a copy of. And again, you compare, obviously it's again in the non-traditional style. But it's fairly wordy, to say the least, for a how to vote card. I mean, these are the things you're supposed to just hand out and someone will get a quick glance at before they go in. I mean, are you actually expecting someone to read those whole messages in those, a reasonably small font, and then eventually get to the point where they think, oh, I'm going to vote for this guy? I mean, it's you have to admit it is a really wordy piece of paper. I mean, it
Well,
barely counts the how to vote
yeah.
card.
Well, absolutely. I mean, when you're starting from basically nothing, it's very hard to get your message out. It's very hard to get reach. I don't have a huge budget to litter the whole neighborhood with leaflets and letters and so on. So it's possible that I could be reaching someone who's never heard about me, and I need to tell them what I'm about so they can get a good idea. And the feedback I've got so far is that people like it, and they're thankful that they can know more about me rather than this generic, oh, just vote me because I'm a local sort of thing. This is what I actually bring to the table.
You're running as an independent candidate, although you are a member of the as yet unregistered Fusion Party. Are you
Yes.
making it clear to potential voters that you are being endorsed by a party at this election?
Endorsed is a bit of a confusing word. I'm not sure where it sits with that, but
Well, Fusion says
I was
they're endorsing you.
okay. If that's what they say, that's okay. Basically, I was originally endorsed by Fusion, and then Fusion didn't make the registration for in time to do the election. So I've gone my own path. I'm still a Fusion member. I still very much believe in Fusion. Fusion are a great bunch of people, and I highly recommend that you check them out as well. But for this campaign, this is all me. It is fairly similar to Fusion policy because I obviously share that same belief as what Fusion does. But it's this is me really. This is what I wrote in my this is my spin on it. I don't have to go through anything to do with Fusion. That's they might give me a shout out or something to give me a hand, but that's about as far as it goes.
So you're saying that despite the fact they have formally endorsed you, they're not helping you.
They might like there's some members of Fusion and they will give me some tips and we could try this or try that or they might put a message on their social media or an email to say hi, we've got some independents in Victoria running. You might want to check them out. But they're not like actually in the campaign. I'm running it myself. I haven't received any donations from Fusion. This is self-funded by me. I think I got one donation from someone not connected to Fusion at all. So it's very minimal. It's more like a sharing of ideas. As I said, they're a great bunch of people. I love bouncing ideas off them, and they're eager to help out in any way. Obviously, if Fusion would have made registration, it would have been a lot easier to run to have more support.
I think
But
the outcome will be,
unfortunately,
maybe Labor, and then if Labor wins, at least it's not Dan. It doesn't look that way at all. I think the Liberal Party has
party
sort of
that you should
turned more
definitely sign
left
up as a
leaning.
member and help them
I
out.
kind of felt
The
like they
membership requirements are
kind of
quite
sat
high,
back
so
and were watching
you
Labor take
you
our
you
rights away.
definitely
And
want to give them a hand to
I
make
don't
sure
know. I
they
think
get
it's
over
up
the
to
line
the
if you
little
believe in them.
parties
Don't
and the
just
independents to
vote
really
for
push.
someone on the day and think that's enough. No, minor parties really do need your support.
So and I'll move on in a sec, but just to quickly confirm that you're formally endorsed by them.
As I said, they're a great bunch of people. I love bouncing ideas off them, and they're eager to help out in any way. Obviously, if Fusion would have made registration, it would have been a lot easier to run to have more support. But unfortunately, it didn't quite make it. And I would recommend to anyone out there, if you believe in any particular minor party, that you should definitely sign up as a member and help them out. The membership requirements are quite high, so you definitely want to give them a hand to make sure they get over the line if you believe in them. Don't just vote for someone on the day and think that's enough. No, minor parties really do need your support.
So and I'll move on in a sec, but just to quickly confirm that you're formally endorsed by them, but they're not
Well,
assisting you in your
they
campaign with
endorsed,
donations.
they endorsed me to run as a Fusion candidate, but because Fusion aren't running, you can't really endorse someone. Like,
Yeah,
I
but
don't know. I
like
think just
according
to
to
tell
this, and
people
it's
that
it's kind of hard to see because it's trying to blur here. Fusion endorses two independent candidates, you and Cami Cordner Hunt. That's Fusion. So
yeah, well, I told them not to use the word endorsed, and I don't know if there's anything wrong with it. They're not a registered party in Victoria, so that seems to be allowed. But look, it's pretty clear, I do have a connection with them. I'm not hiding it. I put it on my website. I put it at the bottom of my how to vote card. Any opportunity I got, I love to talk about Fusion. Even this interview, I'm telling you, I'm a member of Fusion, and they're a great bunch of people. So really, it's just a problem with the registration thing. If it would have gone over the line, I would have been a Fusion candidate, but unfortunately, just didn't happen like that, and just had to go my own way and make the most of it.
gotcha. Now look, apart from moving away from Fusion here, how do you think you're actually going to go?
Look, it hasn't been smooth sailing. It is, as I said, funding is an issue. So I'm not well resourced like one of the TILs, for example, to be able to blanket a neighborhood with information. Another issue is that when it comes to postal votes, they give access to the postal data. They just trust any old candidate with the postal data, and I don't really think that's right to just hand over the data over to anyone who just promises to delete it. So I didn't take up that offer on that postal data, and even if I did, it would be at my own expense to blanket a whole neighborhood with all that how to vote cards in the mail sort of thing. I know that in council elections, they include a little leaflet to let each candidate give a little bit of a blurb about themselves to make it fair, reduce paper, and not really need a huge budget behind you to do that sort of thing. And I would love to see it done with not fusions, done with the Victorian and Australian elections as well. Even on the how to vote cards itself, it just says Simon Gnieslaw on there. It doesn't list a party. It doesn't say the word independent. Doesn't give you any information as far as phone number or email address or website. It's just a name by itself.
Yeah, but why would I have a vote card? I mean,
I
I
got a phone
understand
call from
having.
someone who did do a little bit of.
Yeah, I understand having like independent on it. And I believe the AEC at least federally does say independent, or maybe it doesn't if they're a non-affiliated candidate. But does a how to vote card really need like your phone number on it? I don't, especially given most of the time they're just handing out outside polling places. I mean, I'm not sure who just they'd get one, they'd call you and they'd be like, should I vote for you?
Well, this is actually related to postal votes. So if someone receives a ballot paper in the mail, they're just receiving a name next to a box. It doesn't have any further details than that. You would have to actually go on the internet or call the VEC and find explicitly investigate who that person is to find out about them. There's no direct link to point you in the right direction to find out more about that candidate.
So yeah, there you go. That was Simon Gnieslaw, independent candidate for the seat of Bentleigh in the Victorian state election, speaking to 6 News about a number of things, obviously including his seemingly disputed endorsement from the Fusion Party, officially Fusion Science Pirate Secular Climate Emergency, secular, there we go. But also that VEC win he had. Look, we're going to have coverage for you a bit more after the break here on 6 News, but we want to keep your comments coming in right now because we've got a Twitter poll up right now. We're basically asking you who won that Sky News debate. Was it Dan Andrews? Was it Matthew Guy? Are you undecided, or did you just not watch? As it stands, with about 31 votes, 45% say Andrews, 26% say Matthew Guy, 3% are undecided, 26% I didn't watch. So there's some amount of people who didn't watch think Matthew Guy won. But those are preliminary results. Vote right now. Head to twitter.com/6NewsAU. I think that's it. Or just go to Twitter and search 6NewsAU. We're always there. And so keep letting us your thoughts. Keep letting us know your thoughts. Keep letting us know your questions, given this Victorian election is so close right now. Ruben VB says it'll be interesting to see what the upper house will look like. Real mixed bags. Yeah, well, that's the thing with the group voting ticket system. Really, anyone could win here if they get the right preferences. And you look at the parties who are doing deals with Glenn Drury, and you think, okay, they're probably going to get back in. That includes Sustainable Australia, who were also lucky enough to draw number 1 in the upper house ticket in Southern Metro, where they have Clifford Hayes as their only MP. Also Transport Matters, Rod Barton, elected with 0.62% of the vote back in 2018. Also working with Drury again, could be helped. The DLP, Democratic Labour Party, also might be helped. Bernie Finn obviously trying to retain his seat. Adam Somyurek trying to really unseat Fiona Patton-Reeser, but also the Vic Socialists putting in a fight. Vic Socialists not working with Drury, though, we should obviously point out. Combined on top of that, I think the Health Australia Party, Derryn Hinch's Justice Party, Hinch Justice trying to retain their 2 seats. They had 3 elected, but Catherine Cumming left. Of course, you have Catherine Cumming. We'll be covering her after the break with new developments on what Victoria Police are saying about her red mist comments. But yeah, all in all, it's going to be a real mess, I guess it's fair to say here. So we'll keep you posted on that right now. So keep your questions coming in the live chat right now. Go to Twitter, vote in that 6 News poll. As we continue to kind of look at that Andrews Guy debate, a lot of what people are saying was it was just mainly talking points. It was obviously that People's Forum style, not those questions from journalist style. Not disputing though Kieran Gilbert, Sky chief anchor, didn't ask questions. He did. I watched it. He absolutely did here. But I'm interested in seeing if we can actually get the results of who won according to that panel of undecided voters, 100 undecided voters, because I presume there definitely were, there definitely was some kind of result there. I really assume they would have actually given that. So yeah, I think we're going to keep you posted on that right now. We will be back after a short break here on 6 News as we continue to look at this fascinating, this incredible, this fun Victorian election, because, you know, if it could be any more of a mess, I don't know how it could be any more of a mess. But stay with us here on 6 News. We're going to be back after the break with the latest headlines at 8 p.m. Eastern. Then we'll have more live coverage after that. We will keep you posted during that break with some stock footage of the Victorian election taken by 6 News's team. You're watching 6 News. We'll be back in just a sec. Stay with us. Hello, you're watching 6 News on the Hour. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. The top stories we're following right now. Victorian Premier Dan Andrews and Opposition Leader Matthew Guy face off in the only leaders' debate of the state election, facing an audience of 100 undecided voters on Sky News, despite calls for a debate on the ABC or elsewhere on free-to-air television. Angry Victorians Party MP Catherine Cumming cleared and won't be charged after her red mist comments that were interpreted by some as a threat towards Andrews. Victoria Police now saying she did not commit any offence and they will not be taking the matter any further. And the Solomon Islands rocked by powerful earthquakes, first a magnitude 7.0, then a magnitude 6.0 just 30 minutes later. A tsunami warning issued, not affecting Australia, but later cancelled. Welcome back. You're still with us here on 6 News as we continue our live night coverage. You're watching 6 News evenings. Keep us posted on your thoughts right now. Am now asks, have 6 News spoken to Simon yet? Presume you're talking about Simon Gnieslaw. A few minutes earlier. You can roll back once this broadcast ends, once the program ends tonight, and we'll continue our coverage overnight and throughout the rest of the evening, late nights. But we do want to keep getting your thoughts on this election and this debate that we had. Again, what we're hearing is with that Sky News debate, kind of a mixed reaction. There were some people who said, who were not very pro Andrews, who said Andrews won. Other people saying Guy was more confident, given, he had that experience from 2018. He did debate them back then. Looking at the, again, preliminary results of that 6 News Twitter live poll, 42% say Andrews won, 15% say Guy won, 2% undecided, 41% say I didn't watch it. Of course, it was on, apart from Sky News Regional subscription, and it was on the Sky News website, but still it was mainly a paid TV service. The ABC, Channel 9, Channel 7 all reached out. 9 was going to have a joint Age 3RW9 Channel 9 debate, and ABC, I think there was something with the Melbourne Press Club as well. So yeah, keep your questions coming in right now. The other thing, of course, as we saw in the headlines there, what we understand is Victoria Police have effectively, don't want to say dropped, but they've effectively cleared MP Catherine Cumming, Angry Victorians Party MP Catherine Cumming, over her red mist comments that were delivered during a rally in Melbourne on Saturday. Police saying that no offence has been committed, and effectively that is where they will leave this investigation. Cumming said she was misinterpreted by those comments, red mist, pink mist being the term that is used when blood comes out of a sniper's target when they hit. Now, she referenced the army, she referenced bombs, but she was saying she wanted to. She was more so referencing Labor's red shirt scandal. So kind of a real, up to interpretation there, but that's what Cumming said. She didn't explicitly, from the videos tool, though it should be mentioned, she didn't explicitly at all mention corruption at all. So that's what she said. It's weird saying that. But yeah. So yeah, keep your questions coming in. Yeah, the ABC, we're going to have one with all party leaders, Asian activist says. If that is true, not disputing you there, that is really interesting there, because that would have been a mess, because where does all party leaders end? Because Animal Justice, Family First are both running in all seats. They don't have a leader. Greens obviously have Samantha Ratnam, so I presume it would have been a three-way debate, because the only other party leader I can name off the top of my head is Jeff Shaw, UAP, but again, he's upper household. UAP is only running in the upper house. So that is that. Speaking of the UAP, and speaking of freedom parties in a moment, or speaking of them right now, in a moment, we're speaking to Adrian Abdulovsky. I butchered that. Adrian Abdulovsky, and David Limbrick. Limbrick being the member of the South East Metro region for the Lib Dems, Adrian being the Freedom Party candidate for the lower house seat of South East Metro. For the lower house seat of Point Cook. What? Point Cook. He's running in Point Cook. Limbrick's in South East Metro. He's the current MP. I should know that. I do know that. I just said it wrong. But yeah, we'll be talking to them in just a second. But you keep your thoughts coming in the live chat right now. Again, we are 4 days away from this election. Every single seat's going to vote except for Narrabeen, who have a supplementary election because one of the candidates died, the Nationals candidate. Now, we should emphasise, if you are in Narrabeen, you are still being told by the VEC to vote before 6 p.m. on Saturday local time. You are still being told to vote in the upper house. In the lower house, there will be a supplementary election. No date has been named yet. That is the VEC's wording, not mine. Leo, did you seriously just make that joke on live news? I need to write a script for these things. Yeah. That's what happens because we're now, 6 News evenings. It's this nice chill format where I, can just say whatever, or any of our reporters can just say whatever. Speaking of live coverage, a reminder, as you've been seeing at the bottom of your screen, for the, I'm going to try to point at it virtually, for the entire night, 6 News will be live from 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time on Saturday, November 26th, this Saturday. The panel, we've got Stuart Jeffrey, 6 News contributor, hosted between Parks Place and Capitol Hill, and political commentator and host of the Matthew Hayne Show, Matthew Hayne. They'll both be joining us on the panel all night with, of course, contributions from across the 6 News team, including from 6 News political editor Roman McKinnon, 6 News national reporter Austin Pollock, covering that election for you. Hoping to get a few guests on too, maybe some candidates, maybe some MPs. And we'll be reading out your comments live. It's not biased, it's not boring. It's not boring, it's not biased. That's this Saturday. It's this Saturday from 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, and we'll go all night till, at the very least, midnight. More likely going into early morning because this result could take a while. Isn't that fun? We're gonna be here all night, just never-ending live coverage. We're just never gonna stop. 6 News will just never stop broadcasting because, if we get a minority government, well, those negotiations could take days. Won't that be fun? But yeah. So look, that's kind of what's happening in terms of what we'll be doing on Saturday. We're hoping to be on the ground all day, and we'll try to speak to candidates there. So that should be interesting, and we'll try to bring you as much of that as possible. Speaking of which, of course, we'll be live tomorrow evening as usual, and continuing because we have a lot of interviews that have not been aired yet, including with Health Australia Party, the DLP, One Nation, Shooters Fishers, Family First. I think that's it. Oh, an independent too. I'm hoping that's it. I know, we just need to air them. We need to air them, okay? We've been holding out so long because there are just so many stories at play here that just, they just keep popping up, and they just keep popping up till, eventually, it's just a kind of a great thing of madness here. So that is that. But yeah, as I said just in a moment, or actually now we're going to speak to, or we have spoken to, actually I was just going to, agent activists here, don't go to the AVC on Saturday, stay here, Leo is cool. I fully agree, I fully endorse that comment. But yeah, we're speaking to 2 candidates from 2 freedom parties, the Freedom Party of Victoria and the Liberal Democrats. Well, might as well check that out now. Yeah, if it lets us. Hang on, let's see, can we get it? Are you hearing it? Actually, I was going to say, yeah, you're probably hearing it. No, you're not, it's on mute. Okay. Now. There we go. Oh, it's on mute.
We've got socialists
there we
now
go.
in this country.
Enjoy.
And
We'll be back in a sec.
Are getting more votes than Liberal Democrats. To me, that scares the hell out of me. And we all know the socialists, the Greens, animal justice, all their preferences go to the Greens, and then from the Greens to Labor. So I think Labor's. You're right. They are strong. I would love for one day maybe if we have a little coalition of all the freedom parties, sort of how the Nationals and Liberals have, because I think that's the only chance the freedom parties will have. Every year there's new laws, new regulations on Victorians when there just doesn't need to be.
I mean, well, you mentioned there, socialists getting more votes than the Liberal Democrats, and we take into account, Vic Socialists have only been around since 2018-ish. This is the second state election they've contested. I mean, it said it scares the hell out of you. Isn't that just the will of the people, the will of the voters, that this is who they're choosing to vote for more than another party? You take
What?
into account there are a lot of parties running.
Yeah. Well, in saying that, look what happened to Nazi Germany and Venezuela and all these other socialist countries. It doesn't start with, the people wanting to vote, and then that's how it changes. It starts with the government changing the school system, how education is, how the economical system works. It's very insidious. It doesn't just, let's turn this country communist. Otherwise, it would never work. They start at the education system. They start at schools, and I was in the schools, and they would play videos of like climate change videos. I had a very leftist, I believe it was an English teacher, can't remember, but I had a very leftist teacher, and they'll sprinkle their views here and there. So I do believe it starts in the school system, then it infects the kids. And all the kids do is nowadays they're just on TikTok and they're using that as information, and no one's doing anything about it, especially the youth. And I think that's how it starts. Is morally, everyone, hey, you know what? Let's help the environment. Let's have everyone have rights, this and that. But it's never actually about that when it comes to the left. And these kids, then they will vote for the Greens and all this because it's, they want to legalize cannabis, but it's like, look at all the stuff that comes with that. So I don't blame the kids. I blame the system and what they're doing. They're overreaching dramatically. But that's how it starts. It's not the people being like, we want socialism. It's a very small minority that has just like a mosquito. They've put it into the education system, and that's where I believe that I would love to focus the most on. Just coming out of high school, but it's really, really hard to try and tell kids that maybe you think you're better than other people and that you're more educated than university students, because they just go straight to uni and they believe they have all this degree and they're more knowledgeable. When knowledge is about way more than about college or uni and school. It's about life. It's about your future family. It's more about who you are as a person. So yeah, I don't think it's about the will of the people. I think they are trying to change the minds from young, and then when they grow up, that's who they kind of vote for. I think that's where it starts. I think it starts from youth, and then they just slowly build it up.
So I just want to make sure I heard what you said at the start, that you think you're citing Nazi Germany as a socialist country. Really?
No. I'm saying that I feel like this is how it starts. It's not like the government's like, we're going to start Nazi Germany. It was the actual people that wanted it more. And then it kept going. And look at what a disaster that was.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember exactly what this. It was like Nazi Germany, Venezuela, and other socialist country. So I'm just
Sorry, you're right. That was fascist. Venezuela socialist. I'm speaking more of an authoritarian type of scale here.
gotcha.
Not really an economical scale. That was my bad. You're absolutely right. But yeah, I'm talking about where those type of governments. What was it? It was actually the people changing a whole bunch of views. It wasn't about the government flipping a switch one day. So that's where I believe they get the power from. Is slowly sort of letting it go down into the system.
Gotcha. Now, look, outside of Point Cook in general, obviously, as we mentioned, there are so many minor parties running this election. So many are classified as freedom parties, although there is one freedom party. I'm really trying not to confuse myself in this question. But what makes the Freedom Party stand out from the other freedom parties, like your UAP, your One Nation, your Family First, and others? Because I guess that's important, because as you mentioned there, the vote can sometimes be split, it gets fractured, and more freedom parties come along, and it just splits and splits and splits and splits. And even though we do have, and upper house above the line can be a bit of an exception here, but normal preferential voting, not all people will just immediately flow it back to another similar party.
Yeah. Look, a lot of these freedom type parties have very base at the base at all its roots. They are with the policies. They are mainly in line with each other. I think most freedom parties get along with each other, except when something does happen. But then with other policies, they have one or two things we don't disagree with. So we are different. We're all very similar at the same time. And I feel like when it comes to the Freedom Party of Victoria, we're slightly different because of the people that we have as our leaders. We have Morgan Jonas going to all the protests and actually doing what he believes in. And we have, Aidan, he came from Queensland. He's all the way down here. very emotional speaker when you see him, and they all say it with a passion. Most of the volunteers and members all come from places of like actual need and the people that were affected by lockdown. And when I look at that and when I see people struggle and make something out of it, I think it's kind of beautiful, to be honest. So I do think it's harder when there more parties come along and claim to be freedom. But at the end of the day, I think I don't know what other choice we will have to beat the left and to beat Daniel Andrews.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on again. So look, obviously you've been in Parliament for 4 years, although there was that brief absence earlier this year when you ran for the Senate. I just want to go at that again because, we spoke to you during the campaign. You weren't successful, although I think there was the UAP contesting, which I know I saw a few Liberal Democrats pretty happy about when at least Liberal Democrat supporters when Ralph Babbitt got in. But why do you think you yourself weren't successful?
Oh, look, I think we did get a decent primary vote, but there was a lot of competition and it was very fragmented. UAP had a lot of money. They managed to, do a lot of advertising, and in the end, there's only one position there that was really up for grabs, and they got it. So, it was as simple as that, really.
Now, look, it's sort of a bit of a similar situation here in terms of there being a lot of, some might call them freedom parties. Others on certain sides would call them cooker parties. But regardless, parties who are vehemently anti-Dan, anti-lockdown. There's obviously, as you mentioned, the UAP, but we now have the Freedom Party. We have angry Victorians, Restore Democracy, Sack Dan Andrews. The list goes on. Are you worried the vote's going to be a bit split in terms of the kind of what might be your traditional base going to all these other options?
Yeah, I am concerned about it because the outcome of that will be that, if it gets fragmented too much, then what really ends up happening is they cut each other's lunch and the Greens get in, which I don't think any of them would like. I know some people group us with a lot of these other parties, but I tend to think that our party is quite unique in that we're based on, fairly solid philosophical principles, which we've spoken about before. And the fact that, we've become popular for defending those principles during the pandemic is sort of just a product of our times rather than, something especially different that we've done. We've basically been doing the same sort of defense of liberty for, 21 years, right, since we were formed in 2001.
You've really had a front row seat to some of the COVID situation in terms of how it's happened in the Victorian Parliament, you and Tim Quilty especially, where we've had obviously the pandemic bill passed last year, as we discussed back in December, but also the general lockdown extensions. And we've seen you at a number of anti-lockdown protests and rallies, and also against the vaccine mandates. It has been a while since we've had lockdowns and we've had really heavy COVID restrictions, and they seem to be, been dropped. Now, you can say it's a political thing, but the reality is, regardless of the reason, they have been vastly, dropped here. So is COVID something that the Liberal Democrats have been focusing on heavily, and you did federally too, still a big issue that's going to come into effect come November 26?
It's an issue. I don't think it's the biggest issue, though. The main thing, I've been talking to thousands of people, out campaigning, and the real issues that people are really concerned about at the moment is cost of living, the cost of electricity, of gas, of petrol, of food, meat and vegetables. People are concerned about these things. Rich people might not be so concerned about it, but lots of people in the southeast where I represent, they're very concerned about these things. But I think the other thing that is sort of related to COVID, but is not really directly related, but is the defense of people's rights and, the frameworks that we've had for defending the rights of people during COVID, I think were tested and in many ways failed. And so we're looking at, what can we do to defend people's rights better? And we're proposing to implement a Bill of Rights and strengthen up the existing charter in the meantime.
David Limbrick there, Liberal Democrats MP for the South East Metro region, speaking to 6 News earlier, along with Adrian Abdulovsky I think I got the name right off then. He's running in Point Cook for the Freedom Party of Victoria. Thank you to both of them. And of course, we will have more interviews as this campaign unfolds. We're hoping to speak. There are two parties we have not spoken to yet. Two, Nationals, New Democrats. We are begging them to come out, and I know they're seeing something. I know they're seeing something because I messaged the New Democrats on Facebook, and I said, would you come on? And they left me on red. They left me on red, so we're hoping there. We're hoping we can get the Nationals on as well. So we'll keep you posted on that. But look, obviously this campaign is heating up, and Six News has been out and about, and we've been collecting some of these call flutes. I'm just going to show up some of them because there are a lot, and we've showed them before. And I'm really hoping, by the way, for the sake of the automatic green screen technology, you are actually able to see some of them. But you've got Cameron Liston. Yep, there we go. Look at that. UAP's one's transparent. Isn't that fun? Actually, pretty see-through one anyway. Forget the UAP for a second. But yeah, there we go. Liberal Democrats, Mayor Tessa, who's running in North East Metro. Excuse the glare there. Then we have the Vic Socialists, who I think might actually be able to win in either Northern or Western Metro. This is one of their leaflets. This is also combined with Ros Ward, who is their Richmond candidate. Who else do we have? We have Teal Independent Melissa Lowe. Again, is that transparent? I can't tell. Is it coming through? It's hard because she uses teal. We have the Greens, Gabrielle de Vitry, who is their Richmond candidate. Really strong chance of winning. Yeah, that one is fully transparent. Yeah, is it? Gotta love the magic of green screen technology here. But she's looking like she's a real chance of winning in the seat of Richmond as well. Who else do we have? This is a really interesting one because this seems to be unauthorised. I can't find any authorisation on it. But it says you can't trust Labor on forest, and it says these parties are trustworthy on forest. Greens, Vic Socialists, Animal Justice Reason. Labor, Liberals aren't. There is a tiny authorization on it, authorized by Nick Fox. I don't know who Nick Fox is with. You can barely read it, by the way. It's like, I might hold it up. It's kind of pointless to hold it up, but just there, just under the Labor logo there, it's in black on a dark green kind of thing. Considered using a blue screen? I like this blue tie too much, so absolutely not. Some more Labour stuff here. This is for Lucy Skelton, Q candidate. That's what they're putting out. They've got upper and lower house advice with some, campaign stuff on the back saying Labour is doing what matters for Victorians. What are the New Democrats in Victoria? I'm getting Canadian NDP vibes. Yeah, formed by Kashulia Vagella, who was a Labour MP in the upper house for the Western Metro region. There's Western Metro in the news again. They have 3 crossbench MPs right now. No Liberal MPs. 2 other Labour. Yeah, I really, I don't know much about them, apart from who founded them. A lot of their candidates are from an Indian background. If that's anything to add, I really can't tell you much about them. They talk about change, but I've actually struggled to find their policies here. I've checked their website, which is only recently created. I've checked their, Facebook page, but they don't seem to be doing interviews with us, which sucks, but we try. But again, Kashulia Vagella was an independent, then she crossed the floor. She was a Labour MP, then she crossed the floor, had to sit as an independent, made some bullying allegations. But yeah, she's effectively, it seems like she's just trying to hold on to her seat and got to form a party to do that, or join a party. She's gone down the former party route. But they're contesting a lot of lower house seats as well. I don't think they'll win any, but they're contesting a lot of lower house seats. So that is the reality there. Who else do we have here? We've got a long list here. We have, he's more green. That should stuff everything up. Dr. Joseph Toscano is an independent for Mulgrave. He says vote one for him. He doesn't say vote for anyone else in terms of preferences. I don't know if that's fully allowed or not. It might just be a pre-polling thing, but that's him. That again, Mulgrave, by the way, in case that wasn't clear. Another independent for Mulgrave, Anne Moody, who interestingly I thought was interesting. She has the Liberal 2nd, Ian Cook 7th. Some more Liberal signage, actually using Dan Andrews' image. Don't let him get away with it, is the message they are proposing there. This is Jess Wilson for Q's campaign signage. Toscano is an anarchist. He's been in many elections. There you go. If you're trying to get in touch in the DAP, you could scout out one of the... Yeah, I can't find, like, any of their candidates on Twitter. They don't have a Twitter account that I can find. I think Kashulia Vigella's got a Twitter account. Yeah, Mulgrave's got 14 candidates. Again, we DM them via Facebook. They left us on red. So, I don't know what more I could do here, you know. Emailed, also hoping the Nats get back. Shooters, Fishers, who we mentioned before, didn't get back to us. They have gotten back to us. You should see that tomorrow night. Sometime on 6 News. But yeah, we're hoping they get back to us. God, who else do we have? Well, yeah, there we go. There's Ian Cook, who seems to be the big challenger for Dan Andrews at Mulgrave. Let's just hope that glare doesn't come in. Maybe I'll hold it up on the other side. Ian Cook for Mulgrave. Also in Mulgrave, Freedom Party of Victoria, former Queensland MP, Aidan McLinden is running there. I'm just piling these up on the other side here. Probably terrible for mess. Some family... I'm just holding the wrong side. Family First, more Liberal stuff, Sophie Tawney for Q, some animal justice stuff was in there somewhere, there it is. Vote for kindness and equality, that's the message the Animal Justice Party's putting out. Put Labor last is the other messaging. It's authorised by Liberal, but it doesn't actually have much, like, it doesn't have any, like, pro-Liberal stuff on it, so... Apart from the mention of the authorisation. Some more green stuff here. You get the idea. Point is, there are a lot of cornflakes out. This isn't even all the ones we have obtained, by the way. We have gotten a whole growing collection of them here. I'll just put them to the side of the news desk here. You know, we're looking at seats like Hawthorn, Kew, Richmond. Maybe it's just because we live there. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Does Family First still exist? They're first formed in SA. Yeah, look, this Family First came back in 2021. They claim they're a revival of the old one, which was deregistered, you know, merged with the Oz Conservatives, who are now also gone. Family First Senator Bob Day is an original Family First. He doesn't reckon they're the same. He formed his own party, the Australian Family Party. There was also Family First South Australia, Family First Victoria, Family Matters Australia, Family First Victoria, Family Matters Australia. Both tried running this election unsuccessfully. Realistically, they're a bit more similar than maybe old UAP and UAP, but they're not the same party. They're not the same party. We don't consider them the same party. A former Family First senator is not considered the same party. Yeah, no, Family First aren't DLP. They were Oz Conservatives. Oz Conservatives are gone. So pretty much old Family First is dead, but I'm sure they've gotten a lot of their members, and I think Corey Barney may have helped them get with some of their members, but no. So this election is, as we're approaching 8:30 Eastern Daylight Time, 8 PM SA and 5:30? Yeah, 5:30. I said 5:30 a lot earlier. It was 4:30 then. 5:30 in Western Australia. We're continuing to follow this election campaign for you. And look, it's really a mess right now because we have one seat who's going to a supplementary election. We have got a supplementary election, so voters in Narrabeen can't even vote this election, except they have to vote in the upper house as well. We have the upper house where if you vote above the line, your preferences will be controlled by a party ticket. You have Glenn Drury, who's controlling the preferences of a bunch of parties that could result in someone with 0.62% of the vote or less getting back in. And we saw that in WA last year with Glenn Drury, someone with 98 votes for the Daylight Saving Party getting in. That was Wilson Tucker, MLC. If you vote below the line, you've got to do a number of, minimum of 1 to 5, but there are, so many candidates below the line because there are 23 registered parties, and then there's a bunch of independents, and then there's a bunch of parties who are endorsing independents, and then there's a bunch of parties who tried to run but run successfully, and then there's a bunch of parties who tried to run, who didn't run after running in 2018. And then we now have so many parties running in every single seat. Family First is doing it, the Greens are doing it, Labor's doing it, the Animal Justice Party is doing it, the Coalition as a joint is doing it, although Liberals are running in a bunch of national held seats. Ellie Flaggill is voting compulsory in Victoria. Yes, it is, if you're over the age of 18. So, for me, nah, not my problem, I'm not voting. But for the rest of you, if you're in Victoria over the age of 18, are a registered voter, yes. Transport Matters got it in my region last time, 0.62. Yeah, Rod Barton, sitting member, 0.62% of the vote. He comes in. He's this big crossbench vote, and that was crucial with that pandemic bill last year. So it's kind of a real mess here, if you kind of want to understand that. And it's really hard for some people to kind of understand. And of course, it is a bit of a complicated system. Again, we have above below the line voting federally, but we don't have those preference whisperers and preferences being controlled anywhere else. That's been dumped everywhere else here. So like I don't. It can be really hard to follow here, but it's the last 2 weeks, maybe even just the last week alone, appear to have been a real mess in Victoria. We have a supplementary election in one seat. They have to vote in the upper house, but they can't vote in the lower house, and then they've got to vote in the lower house a few weeks later because a candidate died. We have another candidate who is fronting for the Liberals, who is not going to be in the party room after the election, but she's almost guaranteed to win because she's number one on the Eastern Victoria ticket. And then, of course, when it comes to tickets, we have preference tickets. We have group voting tickets where someone with 98 votes, this is the system, this has happened, really. 98 votes, you can get in, you can hold the balance of power. You can have 0.62% of the vote, win, and be this huge crossbench vote in deciding a major pandemic bill. And so you've got that messaging about above the line and then below the line voting, and you talk about preferences being controlled, and then you get the misinformation spreading that preferences can be controlled in the lower house. They can't. How to vote guides are only a recommendation. How to vote cards are only a recommendation. They are non-binding at all. So a vote for, the Liberal is not the only way to get Labor out, as the Liberals have been claiming. A vote for the Liberals is not for a vote for the Greens, I think some people have been claiming, because the Liberals are putting Labor last on the how to vote tickets, and it was also their how to vote cards. But yeah, and we're trying to cover all that. We're trying to speak to every single party running, and on top of that, we're getting some who aren't responding. So the Nationals, the New Democrats, they're welcome to come on. The Premier, Dan Andrews, the Opposition Leader, Matthew Guy, he's welcome to come on. But we're going to keep covering it for you right now, because even if it is a bit of a shit show, we're going to keep covering it for you right now. And we're going to bring you those details right now. We're going to be live with those details. And of course, we will be continuing to follow that for you, because this is an election that needs to be covered live from 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time this Saturday on 6 News. You don't want to miss it. You absolutely don't want to miss this coverage, because it's going to be all night. It's going to, at the very minimum, midnight, and then it could go over because we could have a minority government. But then are the Greens going to do a minority government with Labor? Will Labor let the Greens do a minority government deal? Are we going to see a situation like Tasmania in 1996, where the Greens had to do a deal with the Liberals, but the Liberal leader then had to resign, and because he only wanted a majority government, the Labor leader only wanted a majority government as well? Or could we just see a situation where no minority government gets achieved, and then we're back like the UK in the 70s, 2 elections in 1 year or in the space of a few months, because the government is just completely unstable? So that's kind of the situation where we're at here in Victoria. It's really hard to follow. It's really hard to follow, and it's like the election gods are laughing at us. What a mess this is. We're going to keep covering that for you tonight, but make sure you check out the latest headlines on our website, SIXNewsAU.com, on social media at SIXNewsAU. For now, though, I am Leonardo Puglisi in the 6 Newsroom. Have a fantastic night.